Sarah lived for the thrill of a good ghost story. Urban legends were her oxygen. She devoured tales of haunted places, cursed objects, and vengeful spirits. Her friends knew her as the Legend Whisperer. When she heard about the Blackwood Hotel and the legend of Room 318, she knew she had to experience it firsthand. The Blackwood was an abandoned monstrosity on the edge of town. It had stood empty for decades, the skeletal silhouette against the twilight sky. Locals whispered tales of its dark history. They spoke of tragic deaths, unexplained noises, and most chillingly, the legend of Bloody Mary in Room 318. Sarah spent hours researching the hotel's history and the Bloody Mary ritual. The more she learned, the more intrigued she became. She felt a magnetic pull towards the Blackwood. It was as if the building itself was calling out to her, daring her to step inside. She shared her findings with her friends, Mike and Jenna. She knew they were hesitant, but her enthusiasm was contagious.
Just imagine, standing in the very room where it happened. We could be the ones to finally capture proof of the supernatural.
The old iron gates of the Blackwood Hotel groaned open like a weary sigh. The air instantly turned colder, heavy with the scent of decay and damp earth. The three friends stood for a moment, their breath catching in their throats as they took in the sight before them. The hotel loomed large, its facade crumbling like a forgotten dream. Windows, boarded up and lifeless, stared back like vacant eyes. Sarah could feel her heart pounding in her chest. This was it, the moment she had been both anticipating and dreading. As they made their way through the overgrown front yard, Sarah noticed broken pieces of furniture scattered around. A rocking chair lay on its side, its seat ripped and torn. A child's doll lay abandoned on the steps, its porcelain face cracked and eerie. Reaching the front door, Mike gave it a tentative push. It creaked open, revealing a cavernous lobby shrouded in darkness. Dust motes danced in the slivers of moonlight that pierced through the boarded-up windows. A thick layer of dust covered everything, evidence of years of neglect. The air was heavy with the silence of ages.
This place is creepy. Maybe we should just go.
Despite Jenna's apprehension, Sarah's determination wouldn't be deterred. She pulled out her flashlight, its beam cutting through the oppressive darkness. The lobby was frozen in time. Cobwebs draped the once grand chandelier, now tilted precariously to one side. A tattered tapestry hung on the far wall, depicting a scene that was now indistinguishable behind layers of grime. The air hung heavy with the scent of decay and something else, something unidentifiable but distinctly unsettling. Sarah could almost hear the echoes of laughter and conversation, remnants of a time when the hotel pulsed with life. Now only whispers remained, carried on the backs of dust motes dancing in the faint moonlight. They moved cautiously through the lobby, their footsteps echoing unnaturally loud in the stillness. Each creak of a floorboard, each rustle of wind through the broken windows sent shivers down their spines. Sarah could sense Jenna's fear, but she also sensed Mike's growing unease. Reaching the bottom of the grand staircase, Sarah paused, her flashlight illuminating a tarnished brass plaque.
Room 318, this is it.
Okay, Sarah, even for you, this is a bit much. Are we really doing this?
He glanced around nervously, his unease reflecting in the beam of his flashlight.
Mike's right, Sarah. It's creepy enough in here during the day. Imagine what it's like at night.
Sarah, however, was undeterred. The thrill of the unknown, the possibility of encountering something truly extraordinary, outweighed any fear she might have felt.
Come on, guys. Don't be such scaredy cats. We're here now. Let's at least check it out.
Her voice held a hint of playful annoyance, but her eyes betrayed her own nervousness. Taking a deep breath, she started up the grand staircase, its once polished mahogany now covered in a thick layer of dust. Each step creaked in protest, the sound echoing through the silent building. Mike and Jenna exchanged apprehensive glances but followed close behind, their flashlights casting dancing shadows on the walls. The higher they climbed, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. The air grew thick and heavy, making it difficult to breathe. The temperature dropped noticeably, sending a chill down their spines. Sarah could feel her heart pounding in her chest, a mixture of fear and excitement coursing through her veins.
Reaching the third floor, Sarah paused, catching her breath.
The hallway stretched before them, a tunnel of darkness punctuated by closed doors, each one a silent sentinel guarding its secrets.
Dust lay thick on the threadbare carpet, and the air was heavy with the scent of mildew and decay.
The silence was almost deafening, broken only by the sound of their own breathing and the frantic thumping of their hearts.
With each step, the weight of the building's history pressed down on them. Sarah could almost hear the echoes of laughter, sorrow and fear that had soaked into the very walls. It was as if the hotel itself was holding its breath, watching their every move.
Finally, they reached room 318. The door hung slightly ajar, a black maw beckoning them into its depths.
Taking a deep breath, Sarah pushed the door open. The hinges groaned in protest, the sound like fingernails scraping across a chalkboard.
The room was shrouded in an almost tangible darkness, the faint moonlight filtering through the grime-covered windows, doing little to penetrate the gloom.
The air inside was stale and suffocating, thick with the smell of decay and something else, something cold and menacing.
Sarah pulled out her flashlight, its beam cutting through the oppressive gloom. The room was sparsely furnished. A rickety bed with a stained mattress stood against one wall, its sheets grey and tattered. A dresser, its drawers partially open, leaned precariously against the other, and in the far corner, shrouded in shadow, stood a large ornate mirror. It was the mirror. Sarah could feel it in her bones. "This is it," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the pounding of her heart. "This is where it happened."
Mike set down his backpack, pulling out the EMF reader and digital recorder. "Okay, let's get this over with," he muttered, his voice tight with apprehension.
Jenna, her face pale and drawn, stood close to Mike, her hand gripping his arm. "Are you sure about this, Sarah?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "This feels wrong."
Ignoring their apprehension, Sarah moved towards the mirror. It was covered in a thick layer of grime, obscuring its reflection. But even in the dim light, Sarah could sense its power. It was as if it were watching them, its surface holding the memories of countless reflections, both living and dead. Taking a deep breath, Sarah began the chant.
"Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary."
Her voice, though trembling slightly, echoed through the silent room. The air grew colder, the temperature dropping so dramatically that Sarah could see her breath. A sense of dread washed over her, prickling at the back of her neck. The first sign that something was wrong was a subtle shift in the atmosphere. The air inside the room, already heavy with dread, grew thick and suffocating, as if a weight had been placed upon their chests. The temperature plummeted further, sending a wave of goosebumps across Sarah's skin. The silence, once heavy and oppressive, now throbbed with an almost tangible energy. It was a living, breathing presence, and it was closing in on them. Then the mirror began to glow. A faint, ethereal light emanated from its depths, casting dancing shadows on the walls. The grime and dust that had obscured its surface seemed to melt away, revealing a crystal-clear reflection. But it wasn't their reflections that stared back at them. A figure began to coalesce within the mirror's depths. It was a woman, her form tall and skeletal, her skin as pale as moonlight. Her eyes, two burning embers, pierced through them, filled with an ancient sorrow and rage. Long, stringy hair, as black as night, framed a face contorted in a silent scream. Blood. Her white gown was stained crimson, the color so vivid it seemed to pulsate in the dim light.
A single word escaped her lips, a guttural rasp that seemed to claw its way up from the depths of the earth. "Beware!"
Terror, raw and primal, surged through Sarah. She stumbled backward, her foot catching on the leg of the rickety bed. The flashlight slipped from her grasp, clattering to the floor with a thud that echoed in the sudden silence. The room was plunged into darkness, but the image of the woman in the mirror, her eyes burning with cold fire, remained seared upon her mind. Mike and Jenna were frozen with fear, their faces ashen in the faint moonlight filtering through the grimy window.
"Run!" Sarah screamed, her voice hoarse with terror.
The words seemed to break the spell. Mike grabbed Jenna's hand and they scrambled toward the door, their movements clumsy and desperate. Sarah followed close behind, her heart pounding in her chest, the echo of the woman's voice, "Beware," ringing in her ears. They didn't stop running until they were out of the hotel and back in the relative safety of the night. Collapsing onto the overgrown lawn, they gasped for breath, their chests heaving, their bodies trembling with adrenaline and terror. opened.